You check your phone. Again. Nothing new. No emergency. No message that couldn't have waited. But your chest still feels tight. Your mind, loud. Your thoughts, relentless. And beneath them all, a quiet panic. A pressure you can't quite name. You scroll, you check, you worry. Not about what is, but about what might be. Rent, deadlines, relationships, loneliness, the job you hate, the one you lost, the future you can't predict, the past you can't change. The noise doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from within you. And it's always on. This is what most people now call normal. Sleepless nights, racing thoughts, that gnawing feeling something's wrong, but you can't quite fix it. It's like drowning in your own mind and smiling through it because the world says, just keep going. But what if I told you the world is wrong? What if the real problem isn't your job, your phone, your finances, or even your future? What if the root of all this stress, this anxiety, this chronic worry isn't out there? It's in here, in how you think, in what you practice, in what you allow to live rent-free in your mind day after day. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, buried children, and fought off plagues, all while writing to himself nightly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Seneca, a man exiled and betrayed, said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And today, over 2,000 years later, our suffering hasn't changed. Only now, we do it with Wi-Fi, social media, and a smile filter. You want calm, you want peace. You want to wake up without that heaviness, without the spiral, without the fear of the day. Then stop looking for the next app, the next productivity hack, the next quick fix. The answer is ancient. The answer is philosophy, and not the kind that floats in lecture halls or gathers dust in old books, but the kind that was tested in war, exile, heartbreak, poverty, and death. The kind of philosophy that prepares you for life and arms you against it. It's called Stoicism. This video is not just a list of habits. It's a manual for mental freedom, built from Stoic principles, modern science, and timeless truth. Over the next 2 hours, I will take you through 10 foolproof habits that will dismantle the anxious mind piece by piece. These aren't tips, these are weapons. Practices that people like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca used, not to escape life, but to walk through it unshaken. If you're returning to this channel, welcome back. You already know, we don't waste time with fluff here. And if this is your first time, subscribe now. Not because of the algorithm, but because something inside you knows you've had enough of living in your own head. Enough overthinking, enough spirals, enough being hijacked by emotions that don't deserve that much power over you. You're not broken. You've just never been trained. This video is your training. So before we begin, take a breath. Not a shallow, stressed breath, a real one. Inhale, hold it. Exhale slowly. You've already taken the first step. Slowing down. Now, I'll show you how to take your power back. One habit at a time. 10 habits that will rewire how you respond to fear, pressure, chaos, and life itself. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand Stoicism, you'll embody it. Let's begin. Habit 1. Negative visualization. The reason you're anxious isn't always because something is wrong. It's often because something might go wrong. And that uncertainty, that blank space your brain fills with horror stories, is what keeps you on edge. You don't fear reality, you fear the movie playing in your mind. This is where the first habit begins, a practice so counterintuitive it almost sounds cruel. But it is, in fact, one of the most powerful Stoic tools to reduce anxiety. Premeditatio malorum. The premeditation of evils. Marcus Aurelius did it before everyday's duties. Seneca practiced it before losing everything, and the Roman general Epictetus taught it like a mental armor. The idea is simple. Imagine the worst, not to dwell, but to prepare. Ask yourself, what if I lose my job? What if this person betrays me? What if I fail? What if I have to start over? Your instinct might be to push those thoughts away, but the Stoic invites them in, not to suffer, but to strip their power. Because here's the truth, what you're afraid of loses its grip once you face it, voluntarily. In modern psychology, this is called exposure therapy, the act of deliberately confronting what you fear, so your nervous system stops seeing it as a threat. In neuroscience, it's called psychological inoculation, like a mental vaccine. Imagine the worst, and when the real world delivers discomfort, it's never quite as sharp. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote to himself, "Today I may face betrayal, cruelty, sickness, death, but none of it is beyond my nature to endure." Think about that. He didn't wish for a smooth day. He expected resistance. He rehearsed the pain. So when it arrived, it didn't surprise him. It didn't destroy him. It simply confirmed what he already knew, that he was stronger than it. Now, imagine if you did this daily. 5 minutes, that's all it takes. Each morning, before the day starts spinning, sit and imagine one thing going wrong. Picture it fully, the feeling, the consequence, the worst-case scenario, and then say to yourself, if this happens, I will survive it. I will not be owned by it. You're not manifesting failure. You're building tolerance. You're choosing to walk into the storm, so that when it comes, you're not shocked by the thunder. Most people live their lives hoping bad things don't happen. Stoics live their lives prepared for when they do, and in that preparation, they find peace. Let's move to habit 2, the second weapon in your mental arsenal, daily reflection, the ritual that clears your mind before it clutters again. Habit 2, daily reflection. You survived the day. You endured the pressure, the noise, the questions you didn't know how to answer, and now the world quiets, but your mind doesn't. This is the moment most people waste. They numb themselves with scrolling or sink into their own noise. But the Stoic, he picks up the pen. Seneca once wrote, "Each evening I examine my entire day. I look into what I did and said, and what I might have done better." He didn't do it for punishment. He did it for clarity, for peace, because only the examined day can be improved. The second habit is daily reflection, a practice not of self-judgment, but of self-inquiry. A quiet moment to ask, what did I worry about today? Did it happen? What did I fear? And how did I respond? Did I act from wisdom or from impulse? You see, when we think we're stressed because of events, but we're often stressed because of patterns, thoughts we repeat, mistakes we don't notice, emotions we never question. Daily reflection is the mirror that shows them. And science agrees. Studies show that journaling, even for 5 minutes a night, reduces rumination. It lowers cortisol. It builds self-awareness. In short, it calms the storm inside. You don't need pages of writing. You don't need poetic words. Just try the 3-bullet method. 1. What did I worry about today? 2. What went better than I expected? 3. What would I do differently tomorrow? That's it. 3 questions, 5 minutes, but done consistently. It rewires your brain. Imagine doing this for 30 days. You'd begin to spot the lies your fear tells you. You'd catch the patterns before they become problems. You'd learn that, most of the time, there was never anything to worry about in the first place. And this is where Stoicism becomes more than philosophy. It becomes discipline, a daily ritual not of control but of clarity, because without reflection, you're just reacting, and every day will feel like a storm you can't steer. With reflection, you become the one holding the wheel. So tonight, put your phone down, pick up the pen, and write. Not for likes, not for anyone else, just for your own peace of mind. Now, let's move deeper. Habit 3 is the foundation of every Stoic life. Focus only on what you can control. Everything else is noise. Habit 3. Focus on control. You wake up, you make a list, you plan everything down to the minute, and still, the day doesn't go as expected. You miss the train, someone lies to you, you don't get the job, you don't get the call, you did everything right, and life still said no. This is where most people break, because they believe that control means certainty. But the Stoics knew better. Epictetus, a slave who became a philosopher, said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not. That's it. That's the whole game. The first step to peace isn't fixing everything. It's learning what's not yours to fix. You can control your effort, not the result. Your actions, not how they're received. Your mindset, not the mood of the world around you. Your focus, not the noise." The Bible echoes the same wisdom centuries before. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Stillness, not struggle. Let go of what belongs to the universe and take full ownership of what belongs to you. Picture this: an athlete. He trains every day, wakes at dawn, eats right, sharpens his mind, visualizes the game. But when he steps on the field, he knows he can't control the weather, he can't control the ref, he can't control the outcome. What he controls is how he plays, how he shows up, how he responds. That's where his power is. And what's wild is this: the moment you stop obsessing over outcomes, you often perform better. Because stress isn't coming from the event, it's coming from your attempt to control it. Ask yourself right now, what have you been holding on to too tightly? A relationship, a result, someone else's opinion. What if you just released it? Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. This habit, this shift, isn't passive. It's powerful. It's drawing a line and saying, my thoughts, my actions, my choices, those are mine. The rest, let it go. And when life doesn't go your way, when the storm hits and you can't stop it, you'll whisper, this isn't mine to control, but my response is. That's where the peace lives. The Stoic doesn't escape reality. He accepts it and focuses only on what he can move. That's not avoidance, that's mastery. Now we move to habit 4. The mental skill that transforms obstacles into opportunities. Cognitive reframing. How to use what happens to you to grow something within you. Habit 4. Cognitive reframing. You missed the train, literally, maybe, or metaphorically. You were late, you didn't get the job, you lost the relationship. Life made a turn you didn't ask for. And now you stand there, watching the doors close, watching something leave without you. And in that moment, one thought creeps in. I've failed. But here's the thing about that thought. It's not a fact. It's a frame. You've put the picture of your life into a frame that says, "This is bad." And that frame is defining how you feel. But what if you changed the frame? Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote his meditations during a deadly plague. He was isolated, his people were dying, his empire was cracking, and in those pages he didn't write, "Why me?" He didn't complain about fate. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the obstacle is the way. That's the fourth habit, cognitive reframing. Not changing what happened, but changing what it means. In modern psychology, this is the foundation of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, the process of identifying a distorted thought and then choosing to look at it differently, rationally, calmly, wisely. You missed the train? Maybe you avoided something worse. You lost a job. Maybe it was a life that wasn't truly yours. You were rejected. Maybe life was redirecting you to where you actually belong. The facts remain the same, but the story is different. And in the end, it's the story that shapes your emotions, not the facts. Picture this. A woman walks into an interview. She stutters. She forgets her line. She doesn't get the role. She could say, "I'm a failure," or "I just found a weakness I can improve." Two stories, same moment. One destroys you, the other builds you. The Stoics didn't pretend life was easy. They didn't fake smiles or bypass grief. But they refused to let reality crush them. Instead, they stood up and asked, "How can I use this? What lesson is inside this pain? What strength is being forced to awaken?" And more often than not, the thing they thought would destroy them became the very thing that transformed them. So try this. Next time you're hit with something unexpected, pause. Write down what happened, and then write down 3 alternative perspectives, 3 other frames, 3 wiser, calmer ways of seeing it. You don't need to lie to yourself, you just need to ask, what else could this mean? Because life doesn't always give you the choice of what happens, but it always gives you the choice of how to interpret it. And in that choice is your freedom. Now, let's talk about the 5th habit, the most underrated skill in building emotional strength, thought auditing. How to spot the mental lies before they spiral into suffering. Habit 5. Thought auditing. It's 1:37 a.m. You're staring at the ceiling, again. You can't sleep, again. The same thoughts echo in your head. What if I lose everything? What if they're judging me? What if I fail? But here's the truth. You've had these thoughts before, hundreds of times. And how many of them ever came true? This is where thought auditing comes in. A habit, not a hack, that changes everything. You take a pen, you write the worry down, and then you ask, is this fact or fiction? Most of what keeps us up at night is a story, a dramatization. Our brain, trying to protect us, ends up imprisoning us. But once we see the story, we take away its power. There was a man who thought his boss hated him. Every meeting, every silence, he interpreted as a sign of impending doom. He spent weeks stressed, snapping at his kids, losing sleep, until one day he finally asked, you know what his boss said? I've been distracted because my wife is sick. I'm sorry if I seemed cold. And just like that, weeks of pain gone, a false story unraveled. When you stop to question your thoughts, you break the trance. you reclaim your mind. Write it down. Look at it. Ask yourself, is this really true? This is thought auditing, a Stoic habit that rewires the anxious mind. And if this part hit you, if you've ever lived in the prison of your own assumptions, then maybe this video was meant for you. So if you're finding value, take a second, like the video, subscribe if you're not already. It's a small click that helps this message reach someone else who's drowning in noise. And share it, because you never know who's quietly fighting a war inside their own head. Habit 6. Stoic breathwork. The body speaks before the mind catches up. When your thoughts spiral, your breath shortens, your chest tightens. The storm begins not in your head, but in your lungs. The Stoics knew this long before science caught up. They didn't call it breathwork. They called it returning to the body, to the moment. Just watch yourself when you're angry or worried. Breath becomes shallow. Eyes dart. Heart pounds. But you can flip the switch. Just 3 minutes, that's all it takes. Inhale slowly through your nose to a count of 4. Hold for 7. Exhale through the mouth to a count of 8. Again. Inhale, calm. Hold, the storm. Exhale, resistance. This simple pattern, known as 4 to 7, 8, triggers the parasympathetic nervous system. That's your body's brake pedal. And when your body slows, your thoughts follow. You're not just calming yourself, you're regaining control. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." But breath brings us back to what is real, not the imaginary future, not the invented fear, but this breath, this moment, this calm. If you felt on edge lately, try this every morning. 3 rounds, no excuses. Because calming the mind begins with calming the body. And you control that completely. Habit 7. Cold exposure. Voluntary discomfort. Seneca used to bathe in icy water, not because he had to, but because he chose to. He understood something we forget in a world obsessed with comfort. Discomfort sharpens the soul. A few years ago, I met a man named Daniel. He wasn't a Stoic philosopher. He was a janitor, quiet, always early. But when I asked him once how he always seemed so calm, no matter what was thrown at him, he said something that stayed with me ever since. I train for the hard days, on the easy ones. I didn't get it then, but he told me his story. Daniel grew up in the projects, slept on floors, went days without eating sometimes. When he finally got a stable job, he promised himself something strange. He wouldn't avoid pain. He'd invite it in small doses. Every morning, before work, he'd step into an ice-cold shower, not because it was pleasant, but because it reminded him, if I can do this, I can handle that. He'd fast once a week, not because he had to, but to remind his body who's in charge. He stopped using his heater in winter, walked long distances instead of taking the bus, and slowly, the man who once flinched at every storm became the calmest person in the room, not because life got easier, but because he got harder to break. And that's Stoicism. Cold exposure, voluntary discomfort. It's not about suffering for the sake of suffering. It's about stress inoculation, about proving to yourself that you are not fragile, that you are not owned by your cravings or your comforts. You own you. So take the cold shower, fast for a day, delay that dopamine hit, because every time you do, you send your mind one powerful signal. We can do hard things, and we're still here. That's not just mental toughness, that's freedom. Habit 8. Sleep as a sacred ritual. You ever lie in bed, exhausted, eyes wide open, mind racing through every possible mistake you made that day. That's not rest. That's punishment disguised as rest. And the ancient Stoics knew this. They knew that the battle is not just in the streets or in public or in the chaos of life. It's also in the quiet moments before sleep. It's in how we choose to end our day. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his Meditations while on military campaign that even amidst war, he reminded himself to return to calm, to stillness before sleep, because he understood something most people today forget. A tired mind distorts everything. And here's where it gets real. We like to act strong, push through, burn out. But Seneca warned against this false bravado. He said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." So what if, instead of using those last few hours to scroll endlessly or drown in overthinking, you made it sacred? Turn off the screens, dim the lights, write just 3 sentences about the day. What went wrong, what went right, what you'll do better tomorrow. Then breathe, slowly, no judgment, no panic, no more pretending you can run on empty, because even a Stoic needs rest. Even the strongest mind crumbles when the body is sleep-deprived. Remember the old quote often misattributed to Vince Lombardi, "Fatigue makes cowards of us all." No mindset hack will save you if you treat your sleep like an afterthought. You're not lazy for needing it, you're not weak for protecting it, you're wise. So tonight, shut it down early. Lay down with intention. Sleep like your clarity depends on it, because it does. And when you wake, don't just rise. Return to yourself. Habit 9. Walking without stimulation. He didn't plan to change his life that morning. He just needed to get out of the apartment. Dan was 35, startup founder, burned out, couldn't remember the last time he had a thought that wasn't tangled in 5 other ones. He grabbed his hoodie, left the phone on the kitchen table, dead battery anyway, and for the first time in months, he walked outside with no purpose, no earbuds, no podcasts, no motivational audio trying to optimize his mind, just the sound of his own footsteps. It felt strange at first, uncomfortable even. His brain begged for noise, anything to break the silence. But after 10 minutes, the noise inside started to slow down. There was no epiphany, no fireworks, just space. Space between thoughts, space between stress and his identity, space to breathe. He noticed the trees were already changing, that the wind had a rhythm, that his mind wasn't empty, it was recovering, that one walk turned into a habit, and that habit, slow, quiet walking, became his therapy, his reset button. Modern science now confirms it. When you walk without stimulation, your brain moves into a default mode network. It processes emotions, sorts through the mental clutter, connects ideas you didn't know were related. But the Stoics didn't need brain scans to understand this. They walked not just to get somewhere, but to go inward. Marcus Aurelius was said to walk the palace halls at night to reflect on the day. Seneca wrote letters during his strolls in the garden. Epictetus told his students to walk in silence and observe their reactions. So today, when the world tries to plug into your head every second, unplug, take a walk. No soundtrack, no digital leash, just your breath, your steps, and your thoughts, finally allowed to breathe. It's not wasted time, it's recovery. And in that silence, you might just find what's been screaming for your attention all along. Habit 10. Voluntary detachment. We all say we understand that nothing lasts forever, but watch how tightly we grip. We cling to relationships that hurt us, to routines that exhaust us, to dreams we've outgrown, to objects, titles, followers, even identities that no longer fit. not because they're still right for us, but because letting go feels like dying. Voluntary detachment isn't indifference. It's not cold. It's not apathy. It's clarity. It's love, without fear. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, late 40s, no children, lived alone in a small apartment in Boston. He wasn't rich, but he had a routine. Same chair by the window, same books lined up on the shelf, same coffee mug, chipped handle, yellowed from years of use. That mug had belonged to his mother. She gave it to him when he left home. She passed away 5 years later. He never washed it in the dishwasher, only by hand. He placed it on the same spot on the kitchen counter every single day. He never drank from it anymore. He just looked at it, protected it. One day, while rearranging some things, the mug slipped. He tried to catch it, but it was already gone, shattered on the tile. He stood there for a long time staring. Then he sat down. He didn't cry. He smiled, because in that moment he realized he hadn't lost her. He had just been afraid to let go of the object. But the love was never in the mug. It was in the way he had carried her memory, in the way he'd become the man she raised him to be. The mug was just a symbol, a relic, a crutch. That's the difference between attachment and appreciation. Attachment says, I need this or I'll fall apart. Appreciation says, I'm grateful this was part of my life, but I don't need to own it to honor it. This is what the Stoics meant. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when you kiss your child goodnight, whisper to yourself, they are mortal, not to be morbid, but to love them more deeply, knowing nothing is promised. Epictetus taught, when you set down your cup, say to yourself, it may be broken tomorrow, and if it breaks, don't cry as if the world has ended. You knew it was never yours to keep. And in Buddhism, there's the same thread. Desire is suffering, because we believe permanence is possible in an impermanent world. But here's the truth. You can love your partner deeply and still understand they may leave. You can enjoy your wealth and still be at peace if it disappears. You can cherish today and still let go when it becomes yesterday. This is the hardest thing we'll ever learn. To hold with open hands, to love without ownership, to experience without clinging, because the moment we grip something with fear, we start to suffer. And in trying to preserve the moment, we miss it entirely. There's a freedom that comes when you stop needing everything to last. You begin to show up fully. You become less reactive. You love more honestly. You accept life on life's terms, not your own. And when the end comes, because it always does, you don't fall apart. You bow your head, you say thank you, and you walk forward with grace. So today, let go of something small, an old belief, a worn-out expectation, a broken piece of your past, not because it meant nothing, but because its time is done. Letting go isn't a loss, it's the beginning of peace, and in that quiet space, you'll finally be able to hear what's true. You can love things deeply, but hold them lightly. That is the wisdom of a Stoic, and the freedom of a soul that's no longer afraid. Before we close, there's two more habits I've saved for last. It's a bonus, yes, but in this world, they might just be the most important ones. 1. Daily digital fasting. Set aside 2 hours, just 2, every day. No phone, no notifications, no noise. Because modern tranquility doesn't come from achieving more, it comes from receiving less. Your brain wasn't built to process this much input, constant scrolling, switching tabs, chasing pings. It's like drinking from a fire hose. Dopamine fatigue is real. The more stimulation you give your brain, the less joy it finds in anything. So start small. 2 hours. Pick a time. Mornings, lunch, late evening. Turn your phone off. Let silence stretch out, awkward at first, then calming. Sit with a real cup of coffee. Feel the heat in your hand. Let your mind wander, unhooked from the algorithm. You're not missing out. You're tuning back in to yourself. The Stoics didn't battle the internet, but they did battle distraction. They guarded their minds the way a warrior guards his shield. You must do the same. Every day, reclaim your time, your presence, your attention. Be unavailable, not to punish the world, but to return to your own. You'll notice something strange. The less noise you consume, the more wisdom you hear within. That's your real voice, waiting patiently behind the scroll. Here's bonus habit 2, simple on paper, hard in life, but crucial if you ever want peace, saying no. Because stress doesn't just come from a heavy load, it comes from carrying things that were never yours to begin with. Think about it. The late nights you agreed to when your body was begging for rest, the projects you accepted out of guilt, the calls you picked up even when you had nothing left to give, not because you wanted to, but because you didn't know how to say no without crumbling. But here's the truth. People-pleasing is self-abandonment in slow motion, and boundaries aren't walls. They're gates. You open them by choice, not obligation. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." He also said, "Don't explain yourself. You don't owe anyone a novel for declining an invitation. You don't have to justify silence. Try this. Thanks for thinking of me. I can't commit right now. I'm protecting my time this week. Let's reconnect soon." That's it. No guilt, no overthinking. Imagine this. You've just worked a long week. You're running on empty. A friend texts, "Come out tonight. It'll be fun." But deep down, you know what you need is solitude, quiet, stillness. You hesitate, not wanting to disappoint. But you also know another yes will stretch you thin. You pause, breathe, and reply, "I appreciate it, but I need to recharge tonight." That's power. That's growth. And guess what? You didn't lose a friend. You just chose yourself. When you say no to others, you say yes to your priorities, your energy, your peace. It's not rejection, it's redirection of your time toward what truly matters. Remember, you're not a bad person for having limits. You're a wise one for enforcing them. Start practicing this today. You'll be amazed how much lighter life feels when you stop carrying everyone else's expectations. The world won't stop spinning, the noise won't go away. People will keep talking, bills will keep coming, deadlines won't move, loss will still visit you, and time won't ever wait. But you can change how you move through it. You can stop spinning with it. You can pause, breathe, and respond instead of react. You don't need to escape to a cabin in the woods. You don't need to quit your job or delete every app. You just need to take one step, one habit, one hard decision, one morning without chaos, one evening without scrolling, one walk where you finally hear your own thoughts. Remember this. Marcus Aurelius was emperor of the most powerful empire on earth, and still he wrote about the importance of silence. Seneca was the wealthiest man in Rome, and still he practiced poverty. Epictetus was born a slave, and still he taught freedom of the mind. These weren't perfect men, they were just awake. Awake enough to notice that most of what makes us suffer is optional. You might still get overwhelmed, you might still feel behind, but now you have tools. You know how to sit still, how to say no, how to detach when it's time, how to walk without music, how to wake without panic, how to rest without guilt. That is Stoicism, not armor, but but awareness, not numbing, but noticing, not coldness, but control. The modern world is fast, the ancient world was harsh, but the human mind hasn't changed. You still crave peace, still long for simplicity, still yearn to live fully, without fear driving every decision. So here's the question you must answer now. Will you let the chaos continue, or will you begin living like it matters? Not just existing, not just surviving, but living deliberately, living with depth, living by principle, living as if your days are not infinite because they are not. Worry less, live deliberately. That's what the Stoics did. That's what you must do now. If this helped you breathe easier, share it with someone you care about. Hit like. Subscribe for more wisdom that lasts. You don't need to change your life overnight. You just need to change how you live today.